Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to an extra special episode of Across the Pitch, Across the Pub. My name is Phil Kennedy, and as always for Across the Pub, I'm joined by my co-hosts Tony Robinson and Darren Woodhead. Today we have a lot to talk about as we're about a quarter of the way through the Accrington Stanley season. We're into an international break now, and I just want to wish a quick happy birthday, a belated happy birthday to the gaffer John Coleman, who celebrated his birthday yesterday. And Darren and Tony, welcome to the show, and I'm excited to chat with you guys and raise a pint of Aki Ale or whatever our drink of choice is today.
Yeah. Nice to speak to you both. I've actually, because it's a little bit later in the day for me than you guys, I've actually poured myself one tonight, the first drink, and it's the Heineken actually, so it's very nice as well.
All right, very good. Well, it's just lunchtime after lunch for me, and I haven't. I've been known to have the odd tipple at but
happy hour.
Happy hour starts at 2:00 when you retired. I forgot my wallet, so Darren, you're gonna have to buy me a beer today.
Yeah, that's why I bought my own.
Well, we've had a couple of interesting guests on the show here. We had Dave Barron, who is part of Darren's Legend series. We also had Liam Atkinson, who's a vlogger, which is a video blogger for those of you who don't know, who has his own YouTube channel. And besides their age difference, they definitely brought quite different angles to the episode. I really enjoyed both of them, especially with Dave Barron hearing on the historic aspect of the early days of Accrington Stanley, and with Liam, it was really nice just kind of hearing him really get in depth on breaking down the lineup and things like that. So what did you guys enjoy about those chats?
Yeah, they were both really good in their own right. Obviously I was involved with one of them, Dave Barron, and I was just thinking earlier, Phil, if you had to piece together all the podcasts we've done on the veteran series, and starting out from back at Peel Park days, Russ Cuddy, etc., right through to current times, you've almost got a timeline there, a podcast, haven't you? If anyone had the time to piece them all together, just throughout the last 60 years of history within Accrington plus, so that was fantastic. Liam, again, I really enjoyed listening to that podcast. Brilliant, to hear somebody of Liam's age, speaking so passionately about the club and things he's doing on YouTube. He's taking it to the next level, and really enjoyable. See young guys interested in Stanley and the history and things like that. And there's other things going on Twitter. I've seen the past and present. Paul Baldwin does on Twitter, and all those things that I'm really into. To see young guys doing it now is it's absolutely fantastic for me.
Yeah, like you said with Dave, I thought it was really a puzzle piece, if you will, in the history of Stanley. And I just love seeing, with your Legend series, it's like every interview is a new piece of the puzzle.
Well, yeah, from my point of view, I think that's exactly it, because as we've mentioned before, there's a lot of areas that I needed filling in, and I thought Dave Barron, his insight and how the season unfolded when the first team resigned from the Football League, and the stories that he told about Eric Whalley and just the you could tell the pride and the passion he had for the club, and I thought what you did, Darren, was just a terrific gesture to have him come as a guest, and I think that sort of brings another past veteran back into the fold, and I thought it was a tremendous conversation, and it really is important that we document the time in the 60s where we should be proud of that, and filling in the gaps is so important. And David did a terrific job. Liam, I just thought the passion, and we said it just came through in spades. And I particularly found interesting is the way that he respects and addresses the away fans, and how he said that he seems to, with the bigger teams, he seems to get a lot of views from away supporters, and I just thought the respect he gave them was typical of the club and whatever else, the family, the Accrington Stanley family, how they treat the away supporters, and I think he was a great example of that.
Well, speaking of away supporters, I think that one of the big stories or topics of conversation recently has been, maybe not necessarily started with a supporter, but I believe it was one of the Ipswich players who had made a comment along the lines of that Stanley, I guess, was too small of a club for the Tractor Boys to be losing to, or something along those lines. And certainly in League One, you have a big mix. You have clubs like Accrington who have come up from the non-league ranks. You have clubs like Ipswich, Sheffield Wednesday, Sunderland, who are, used to maybe being in the Championship or the Premier League. And then you have, even some clubs that are just kind of normally in League One, if you will, maybe like Charlton or something like that. But one of the things that we wanted to talk about are what do we think are the three biggest clubs in League One based on history right now? And I think we were going to start with our third biggest club and work our way up. So, Tony, did you want to start off and give us your third biggest current club in League One?
Yeah, I thought, and this is a topic that I thought was good for discussion because of the fact where, we talk about so-called big clubs and then we talk about the small clubs or tin pot clubs. And when you look at the big clubs, what constitutes or is the definition of big clubs? So the way I looked at it was the history of the club, current squad sort of expectations, stadium and the sort of average attendance, and when you look at the League One, there's quite a few teams that really have fit into that category. But to start off with, I went with my number three as Ipswich, and I'll give you the reasons why. It's a stadium at Portman Road, capacity of around 30,000. The average attendance is close to 20,000. So they're around 65% in attendance. And they are a founding member of the Premier League, 5 seasons in the Premier League. And they won the FA Cup in 1978. So I think if you look at that in that aspect, I think Ipswich you'd have to consider as a big club. That's my number three pick.
And I'll just real quick say that we're in agreement on third. I had Ipswich third. Pompey will be an honorable mention, but I'm in line with you on Ipswich. Darren, what'd you have at third?
Believe it or not, Ipswich. Right.
And let's tell everybody we didn't talk about this before.
No, we didn't talk about this, and we do make some notes for the show. People might find that hard to believe, but we also have our individual notes. So, yeah, again, Ipswich for me. As Phil said, Pompey, honourable mention. Out of all these clubs, I think Pompey are one of the teams, and I haven't picked them in the top three, that they could perhaps be my favourite club out of all of them, but they're not in the top three. So, yeah, as Tony said, FA Cup winners, 1978. A huge club when I was growing up. They won a European competition. They had some first foreign players that came over, Arnold Muren and Franz Tyson, Bobby Robson as the manager. They were a huge club. And
the other thing is that right before they dropped down to League One, prior to that, they had the record for the most consecutive seasons in the Championship. I want to say it was like 17 or 19 consecutive years that they were in the Championship. So, I think they're pretty solidly third.
Good, solid club.
Yeah.
Let's go reverse order. And Darren, why don't you give us your number two team?
Right, number two, I've gone for Sheffield Wednesday. Again, huge club. Memories of watching them when I was younger. It was always when the FA Cup, going back to the FA Cup, which was a huge event back in my childhood, and probably what you imagine with Super Bowl now, and the country just comes to a stop. Where, you know, back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, every time it was FA Cup day, it was huge. And a step before that was the semi-finals, and Hillsborough was always a ground for the semi-finals, one of the biggest grounds in the north of England. Unfortunately, it got associated with the Hillsborough disaster, etc., which we all know about. But apart from that, the actual football matches that went on that stadium were just immense. It was just a brilliant, stadium, and they had a good team throughout the 90s and 2000s in the Premier League, and so they're my second pick.
Well, I'm afraid this might get a little bit repetitive here, because I think that we're on the same track, because I also had Sheffield Wednesday as my number 2 team. I mean, when they dropped down, they were one of those teams where you're just kind of like, wow, didn't really expect to see them in League One. And of course, a founding member of the Premier League. So yeah, Sheffield Wednesday was also my number 2. Who'd you have, Tony?
I've got my head in my hands now. Sheffield Wednesday, that's my number 2 pick, and the reason I had that was, again, the size of the stadium. They're a $40,000 seat stadium, as Darren mentioned, one of the biggest in the north. They run at 56% capacity, almost 22,500 for a League One match. A founding member of the Premier League, won Division 1 4 times. Last one was, I guess, in 29 and in 1930 they did that. FA Cup winners 3 times, 1898, 1907, 1935. It's not reason for one of the biggest clubs, but I still love the name Wednesday. I think that's a absolutely brilliant name for the team. But Sheffield Wednesday is my number 2 pick, and as I said, we didn't compare notes on this one, but it's funny we're all on the same page.
Well, I have a feeling that we're maybe just going to agree across the board on all of these, because your number 1 team, were they on Netflix by any chance?
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say my number 1 team is Sunderland. That's
who I had, and I'm assuming Darren. Or no surprises. You also have the Mackhams.
No, I've gone for Morecambe. No. I
thought we were on the wrong list then.
Yeah, no, I'm only joking. So I mean, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? The number 1 team. I think we're all in agreement. It's just they are a Premier League team all over, aren't they? It's a Premier League team who are in, and they just happen to be in our division.
Yeah, I mean,
it's only a matter of time before they climb up again. 16
years in total in the Premier League. They actually are listed as the 6th most successful club of all time. Won the league championship 6 times. A lot in the early 1900s and late 1800s. Won it in 1936. FA Cup winners twice. 61%, yet 30,000 people per match to watch a League One match. So I mean, there's no doubt. And I mean, there was other teams that I looked at. Bolton, Charlton, Wigan, and Portsmouth. Portsmouth is really could have been number 3, as Darren mentions. But I think it sort of, when you research the history and the factors that go into what we call a big club, I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I think what we can do, we can post it out on social media, because then if we are wrong between the 3 of us, we're all going to get some stick out there, aren't we? So I think it'll be interesting to see what everyone else thinks, won't it, rather than just us 3, because I think Pompey could, especially Pompey fans, could feel a bit aggrieved that they're not in the top 3.
Yeah, I'll that's a good idea. I'll post that on the Twitter and Facebook pages. So I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the end of the day, that having these big clubs in League One is certainly a good thing for Stanley, especially when it comes to the away supporters and the amount of income that brings in. So now, Darren, on the flip side of the big clubs, there's another kind of club that we find in League One. And why don't you take us away with our next little topic here?
Yeah. So on the flip side, we were looking at tin pot clubs. So I think, I'm not sure where tin pot derives from, but I think it's almost a case of the smaller clubs having a laugh at their own expense, really, Stanley included. I think Stanley, tin pot, we're not bothered about that. We have a laugh about it. And I think there's a few clubs that fit into that category who are punching above their weight, and the likes of Stanley, Morecambe, Cheltenham, small clubs, non-league background, know how to manage the finances, and doing quite well. I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well, when I was wanted to look up the definition of a tin pot club, really, because I was a bit confused. I thought it was sort of Darren, you said it's not. You're not too worried. I just thought it was sort of maybe a bit of a slight. So I wanted to get a what the definition was, and what I come up with was it seems to be a phrase reserved for the club, not the fans themselves, but the perceived attitude of those running the club, and for that reason, I wouldn't put Accrington in it because I think the attitude of people running the Stanley is very positive throughout the EFL. So, and the other one that under the Urban Dictionary, it described a tin pot club as a crappy little football club who's never achieved anything, have few supporters, and generally have a rubbish stadium. Now, I mean, up to a few years ago, you might have been able to put Stanley into that. But anyway, I'll jump in first with my number 3 tin pot club, and it's Morecambe and the Mizuna Stadium. Actually, they do well on the attendance. They have 62% capacity. They average around 4,000. But it's their first year in League One. It's the highest they've been, and just it's because it's one of Stanley's main rivals. And there's that sort of dislike for Morecambe, so that's why they made my list at number 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with tin pot clubs, I think that Stanley is kind of on its way out of that. I think that, a lot of the old stories that you hear about Stanley, back in the day where, maybe, players not getting paid on time, or the really bad changing rooms and things like that are no longer the story at Stanley, has allowed Accrington to move out of the ranks of tin pot and become an established League One. And Tony, I think that maybe our bottom part of the list here is going to be pretty similar too, because I also had Morecambe as my third tin pot club, kind of like you said, coming up, a natural rival of Stanley's, if you will, and certainly not as established in the league as we are. So right on the money with that one.
Yeah, for me, I'd say Cheltenham for my third choice. Club, as I said, been on a similar journey through non-league, etc. And I'm looking at tin potters more in admiration rather than looking as a downside of things. So yeah, I'll go for Cheltenham as my third choice. I think who we play at the weekend.
Well, I had Cheltenham down on as an honourable mention, along with Burton Albion and Crewe, but I'm going to go with my number 2, and I'm sticking again close to home, is Fleetwood, and their stadium, it's just a slightly smaller size than the Wham Stadium, 5,300, but they get 59% capacity. 6 years in League One, but the fact I've been to that stadium, and it's not really one of the best stadiums. So I got Fleetwood at number 2 for me.
Number 2, I had a team that you mentioned in your honorable mention, which is Burton Albion. To me, they're a team where a few years ago they had gotten up to the championship and looked like they were on their way up. Ever since then, it's just kind of been one step forward and 4 steps back. And, they just seem to be a team that's kind of on the downturn. Their attendance is, right around 3,000, which is the lower end of the league. And, I just think that Burton Albion is certainly one of those teams where every year you're looking and saying, maybe they'd be one of the teams that would go down to League 2. Darren, who'd you have at number 2?
Number 2, I'll go for Morecambe. I went there, even though they've got the new stadium. I still look back at the journey they've been on, the old ground, etc. And we used to play them. We've played them for 20, 30 years and been big rivals of them. Like I said, we've been on a similar journey. They're only they're a town, not a massive town. They're punching above their weight again. So I'll go for Morecambe at number 2.
Okay, I'll jump in with my number 1, and right. I'm going to go with, I don't know if this might surprise you or not, but I'm going with the MK Dons. And they've got a stadium, an original name. It's called Stadium MK. So that was really well thought out, that one. 30,500 capacity, and the attendances average around 8,500 or 26%. They moved, or if you want to found it or move, whichever you want to describe, in 2004. They did one season in the championship. But they're a team without history, and I guess I just don't like MK Dons and what they've done, and so I've got them as my number 1 tin pot club.
I like where you're going there, and they were certainly in my list of teams that I thought of, but just due to their new stadium and things like that, I actually had to leave them off my list. And my number 1 is actually kind of the opposite team of MK Dons, which is AFC Wimbledon. And to me, I think that they are the most tin pot team in League 1. I think every year it's kind of a surprise when they stay up. That doesn't mean that I don't root for them too, because certainly they are a club worth rooting for, and much more likable than the MK Dons. But in terms of the definition of tin pot, I'm looking at their attendance of 1,400, and it's just not quite doing it. Darren, what you have?
Okay, so for my number 1 tin pot club in the country, I will go for Accrington Stanley.
No.
No. And I'm saying it in good fun and good humour, obviously. I'm just thinking, for all that we like having a laugh at ourselves at Stanley, and if somebody else was saying it about us, we'd all be rearing up and unhappy. But I think we can say it about ourselves. And the other reason is, for all the good things that are going on, I don't think we should ever forget where we've come from in the last 20 to 30 years. And I know Stanley fans won't. And it's all a good bit of fun. And I put us in the same category as all these clubs I've mentioned. We're all clubs who are punching above our weight. We're all in League 1, having a good go at it against these giants. And it's almost like a band of brothers. These teams who are all having a go at these big, massive clubs. And I'm happy to be tin pot for a while.
It's funny you say that, Darren, because during my research and I found a list where it rated the top, all the 92 clubs in the Premier League and the EFL, as far as big clubs, all the way down to tin pot clubs. And I don't know if it was alphabetical order or what, but Accrington was listed as number 1.
Yeah. We're not bothered. We can have a laugh about it, can't we?
Yeah.
When it comes to pushing above the weight, I don't think anyone comes near Accrington.
No,
and I think you're right. I mean, if any other team did this survey, Stanley, if they're not, they would be in the top 3, if not number 1. So you're right, Darren. We have to have a chuckle, but I just couldn't bring myself to put them on the list. But
yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys too. We're in an international break, and Stanley's match was postponed, and I know John Coleman has said either whole game's cancelled or everybody plays. But what do you guys think it came at a bad time for Stanley based on their win at Ipswich, or was it a good time to allow people to heal up a bit? Darren?
I don't know. I thought it was a good time to finish it. International breaks, I think it's all about the result you get just before it finishes, isn't it? And especially where we've been up and down, haven't we, the last few weeks? And to go out on a high with that result, I thought it was, I thought it was quite good just to take a bit of stock. We're about quarter of the way through the season, just to reflect, and we've gone out with a win. So I wasn't too disappointed, to be quite honest. What about you, Phil?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it may have been a good time for it to come because, we're coming off of the big win with Ipswich, but like Darren said, it's really been an up and down over the past 2 weeks. It's not like we were on like a 5-game winning run or anything like that. The other thing I look at is, getting a chance to have some of the injured players maybe have some time to get healthy. And overall, I think that Stanley and John Coleman has always said, you never want to get too high after a win, never want to get too low after a loss. And I think that, at times throughout the season that maybe that's happened a bit where, expectations get too high after a win or too low after a loss. So maybe the break will just kind of give a chance to kind of reset, look at things and say, we're in a good spot in the table and let's take the rest of the season one match at a time.
And based on we've gone through almost a quarter of the season and we're sitting 11th, which is where the club ended up last season. Are we where we expected to be? Any surprises from your point of view? I'll go, Phil. What about you first?
There's maybe been surprising individual results where maybe one match or another hasn't gone the way we expected it to, but where we're at the table, matching where we were at last season, I don't think that's too big of a surprise. I mean, I was hoping that we would finish somewhere around 10th and, certainly sitting in 11th right now is not too far away from that.
Yeah, same for me. We're not too far away. We've had, as Phil said, some ups and downs, and most teams have, haven't they, when you look at it? I mean, it hasn't been plain sailing for many clubs. So, yeah, in general, I think we're where we need to be. I think we'll settle for that and then hopefully kick on as the season progresses.
I think what I like about, even though we are 11th, is the fact we've got 5 wins. Which to me is a positive because, it usually takes, there's the top teams have only got 6 or 7 wins. So you can easily put a couple of wins together and move up. I think one of the surprises for me so far is the fact that I know they played one match extra and the top 5 or 6 are tight, but I haven't seen Plymouth at the top of the table as a bit of a surprise. And Sheffield Wednesday down at number 8, Ipswich at number 14, although they seem to be turning things around. So I think you say that a quarter of the season, the table should be getting some sort of being set. But I don't think that the case is in League One. I think it takes a lot longer for teams to get in the order they should be. So anyway, I guess overall you'd like to be higher, but I don't think we can complain at being 11th.
Yeah, I think that what we've started to see is that, generally around January and February is when you really start seeing teams separate themselves and start to know who's going to be where at the table. So I think right now we're still a little early in the game to make any predictions, because especially when that winter weather hits and you have the Christmas time where there's about 4 games in 2 weeks, that really seems to shake things up every year.
Yeah, for sure. I know, Darren, you've been doing a lot of work with the supporters club. Have you got an update, anything you can share with us as to things that we need to sort of update on?
Yeah, so obviously everybody knows about the sponsored walk. walks. There was 2. They went very well. Raised £2,000, just over £2,000 for the. Half of that went to charity, to Iron Baby Bank. The other half to the Supporters Trust, who have in turn have put that into a defibrillator for the ground. So a lot of good causes. Great day, really wet. We all got wet through. There were a lot of people that supported it as well, in terms of, in cars and bringing us little bits of snacks as along the way. And it was just a good day all round, really. I mean, £2,000. I've just got to give a little shout out to Gary Domain, who he carried a bucket all the way from Rochdale to Accrington. And I don't know how he managed to carry it, but there were only £1.50 in it. So that's all he got. In 16 miles, he got £1.50 donation. So.
I had to laugh because Gary posted pictures of the walk on his Facebook, and most of the pictures were where you guys stopped at a pub.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a pub actually. Believe it or not, it was a cafe, but they weren't serving alcohol. It was just coffee. But yeah, we did stop halfway at a little place at Edenfield. That's where he got his £1.50 actually. Some elderly couple felt sorry for him, went through and put £1.50 in his bucket, and that's it. That's all he got for 16 miles. So that was a good bit of fun. So all right, just moving on to what we've got going on with the Supporters Trust. So there's questions and answers with Andy Holt and Dave Burgess. It's at the Bold Street Club coming up. That'll be posted online. Due to the fact there's so much rebuilding going on at the club, it's been moved to Bold Street. Peter was informing me today we've got the poppy badges on sale for Remembrance Day. So, if you can hopefully buy one of those, we'd be grateful for that. Yeah, so there's the 1968 draw, which you can also get involved with online. It is £10 a month, but there's some huge prizes drawn out once a month. We do have ex-players coming back and doing the halftime draw, and when they draw that out and when there's a match around that time. So if you can get behind that, there's sort of got its own social media pages on Facebook and Twitter. That's the 1968 draw.
Yeah, that's an excellent deal with the 1968 with the monthly drawing, chance to support the club and maybe get a little cash in your pocket.
Yeah, well, I haven't won yet, and so
neither have I. Well, let's move back to football a little bit here, and one of the things we wanted to talk about here is basically one player on Stanley who's exceeded our expectations this season, and one player that we're looking to see a big second half out of. Who wants to go first?
Oh, Tony.
Okay. The player that I picked might seem a bit strange for somebody that exceeded expectations, and I'm going with David Morgan. And the reason I say that is he came to the club last season, played well, but I didn't expect him to get a lot of playing time with Seamus Keneally. But with Seamus's injury, David came in and has really upped his game, and I thought he's played a heck of a lot better than he did last season. And I think he's exceeded my expectations just because he stepped up and covered for Seamus.
Yeah, I think I definitely have seen a lot from him in terms of improving where he was last year. And like you said, I mean, he's made 8 starts, played 720 minutes this year, which is more than we probably would have expected. So I think that you're right on the money there. Now, the guy that I have that exceeded expectations, it's not necessarily so much exceeded expectations overall, but exceeded expectations on the offensive end of things, and that's Michael Nottingham. I don't think anybody expected him to have 3 goals already as a defender, and he's just a guy where really every match that I've watched, he's really been getting involved in the attack, and that's been a pleasant surprise for me.
Phil, have you been reading my notes again?
What's that?
Have you been reading my notes again, Phil?
Oh, man.
Okay. Yeah. So again for me, it's Michael Nottingham. I watched him last year on iFollow and I was impressed, but seeing him in the flesh, I've been even more impressed with him, to be quite honest. What a great player. He's a bit of a cliche, but we say like a Rolls Royce of a footballer. And to me, he is. He glides around the pitch. He's got so much time. He's good on the ball. He's got height. He scores goals. I just think we're so lucky to have this guy. I think he's a top player.
When you say that, both you guys, I had him down, and I thought, well, that's too obvious. But so I went with, but no, I agree with everything you said, and totally agree. We see him just on iFollow, but I thought he was steady and a really solid player last year. And like you said, he's just he's stepped up his game and just has been a tremendous player. Could be the MVP so far of the club so far.
Absolutely, that's what I was thinking too. All right, well let's go the opposite direction. Darren, who are you looking to see a big second half of the season at?
Right, it's more fingers crossed really that two players. I'm split, and what I want to see more from players is I just actually want to see them back on the pitch, and that's two guys, and that's Harvey Rodgers and Joe Pritchard, because I had high expectations for both of those guys based on last season, and unfortunately injury has played a big part, and we haven't seen much of them. So again, both those guys, Harvey and Joe, I just want to see them back on the pitch for Stanley, and I think they can both have great careers, and I just want to see them kick on, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pritchard was certainly someone that I had down to where, we just want to see him get healthy, because when he's on the pitch, he's a guy that's going to be creating, scoring goals. Yeah, he's just a guy that makes things happen. Now, the guy that I had written down, though, is a guy who's actually really started to come on in the last few weeks, and that's Colby Bishop. He kind of got off to a slow start to the season. But now he's managed 3 goals here in the past 4 matches, and I really just think that we're going to see more of that, and I'd love to see him get somewhere close to 15 goals by the end of the season, and I think that that's a reasonable expectation based on what we've seen out of him in the past.
Well, it's from my point of view, and I think this is nice because we all have got different players. And my player I'm picking that I'd like to see more of is Ethan Hamilton. And the reason I say that is because the short time he's been here, he's got quality. You can see he's got quality, and he can affect a match when he's come on and he's played. And I think if we see more of him and more playing time in a starting position, I think we could have a really solid midfield when Joe Pritchard comes back. But I think, I just like what I see with him, and I think he has a potential to be a top player. And so I'm looking forward to seeing more of him as the season progresses.
Yeah, I think that's right on the money. He's only made 6 matches, 4 starts so far, but in that little amount of time, he's really impressed.
One of the things I wanted to ask too, and this is goes back to what we talked about bigger clubs and some things you see on social media, and that when teams, and let's use Ipswich as an example, is when the fans, when you talk to the fans, they expect they're coming to, they say it's Stanley there, and there's in air quotes, Tin Pot Club. And there's that sense of expectation, I think, sometimes that they get 3 points and they go away and they're sort of a bit in shock or a bit disappointed that they haven't got the 3 points. Do you guys think there's, with some of these fans that from the bigger clubs, there's that sense of entitlement when they come to Wembley Stadium, or am I just missing something here?
No, I think you're right on the money. I think that the things like you're talking about, where they read an article about Stanley is the #1 tin pot club, or they remember back to the milk commercial, or they just they just see Accrington Stanley and think, okay, small stadium, 2,000 in attendance, that type of thing. I think all of that just kind of adds up, where if they're not watching Stanley on a daily basis and seeing what the club has accomplished, then, they're just thinking it's the same, your grandfather's Accrington Stanley, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a theory on this, so to speak. Say if you take Sunderland, for example, I don't think it's necessarily the supporters who come away with Sunderland to the Wham Stadium and watch. I mean, you've probably got 2,000 or 3,000 who would travel to that game, and then you may have 100,000 people who follow Sunderland to some degree. And I think when you go into social media, everybody's got an opinion, and it could be one of 100,000 people who've got some opinion about why Sunderland should beat Stanley. And I don't necessarily think it's the supporters from those clubs who've actually visited on the day, enjoyed the day, seen Stanley are a decent team, got a decent pitch, decent facilities. It's very small, but so I think it might just be people more on the periphery rather than the hardcore supporters who get on the coach and go to games.
Just to add on to that, Darren, I think you're onto something there, because when you listen to some of the fans that have actually attended, there's a lot. If somebody says anything negative, there's a lot of support from away fans saying, no, that's not the case. Stanley's a good club. It's a nice experience. It's a good away day. And there's a lot of, I think, a lot of respect from fans that attend, away fans that attend, that they give, after the match, they win, draw or lose, they give a lot of respect to Stanley.
Yeah. I've very rarely heard somebody from a perceived bigger club who's come and said, "Oh, we should have beat those. They were a lot of rubbish,"
Yeah, I think that you make a good point. That I think it's going to be a lot of the people who are not necessarily the hardcore fan, but the casual, looks at the newspaper score but doesn't actually watch the game kind of guy that's going to have that opinion.
Yep. Agreed.
All right. Well, I think that we covered everything on the list so far. Did you guys have anything else that you guys wanted to talk about here before we get into the wrap up?
Well, no.
Just what I wanted to just to mention is that when we've got some really good shows planned in the pipeline upcoming, and one of the things that we want to do is have a push and we want to hopefully, fingers crossed, cross that magical threshold of 50,000 downloads, prior to year end, and with the shows that we've got in the pipeline, hopefully we can do that. And I just before I ask Darren as to what he's got with the veteran series, I wanted to just sort of, Bill, get your comments because I mean, going from episode 1 with you, Aaron, and Matt, and starting out then. To seeing the just in front of the car kind of thing, 50,000 downloads. What's your thoughts on that?
Wow, I mean, it's been some kind of an amazing journey. So it was, September of 2019 when we kind of came up with the idea, and November of 2019 when. Aaron and I recorded the first show, and then the Scott Brown interview, and since then, we're closing in on 250 numbered episodes. That doesn't even include any of the bonus content. We covered a little bit of everything around the world. I mean, Ghana, the Belarus League, you name it, and. At the end of the day, it's kind of brought the three of us around to talking the one main thing that we are very passionate about, and that's Accrington Stanley. And I'm just looking forward to all of the great interviews in the Legend series that Darren has lined up. Any of the current player interviews that you and I are going to be doing here, Tony, and of course Across the Pub, which is becoming a favorite of mine every month.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to all the upcoming episodes episodes. I'm enjoying being part of it and the ones I listen to as well. We know we've got Jimmy Bell coming up, which will be nice. We've got a couple of ex-players who I'm still lining up. I'm very much conscious of the gaps we need to fill now. With the history of the club, there's certain eras that we haven't covered, so which I'm keen to address. I've got a couple of people who are lined up very. Hopefully, I can announce them very shortly.
Well, and you mentioned Darren. I love those because, as I say, everyone seems to fill in a gap, and now you could get to that stage where you can identify where there's a sort of a hole, and you can hopefully get somebody to come in to speak of that era and fill it in. So they're tremendous. I enjoy them thoroughly, and I think they are one of our favorite fans episodes. And you mentioned Jamie Bell. We've got confirmation that we're going to be recording with him next week, and I think that's we really appreciate him in taking time. And we're going to look for some fan questions, and we're going to ask him about the Dion Charles situation because he said he's fine talking about that. So nothing is off the table.
We nearly got through an episode without mentioning Dion.
Yeah, well. And I think it's a lot of fans will be interested in what he has to say. And Jimmy's a fan favorite, so I'm looking forward to that one. And one of the things I'm working on is because there's been a lot of talk on the club website about depression and anxiety and what players have gone through. We're looking after Jimmy Bell to get on a player with the topic of mental wellness. And because I think it's an important message that we, as we talk to players, it's something we don't really dwell on. And I think it's well worth spending some time talking to what players go through from a mental point of view. So that's something we're working on. Yeah. And as Phil says, we're trying to get some of the new players that we haven't had on. And, looking forward to that. So we've got lots in the pipeline. As I said, hopefully with those, we can do that big push to hit the 50,000 mark.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Jimmy Bell. Last time he was on was just fantastic, and I can't wait to ask him about the new season and things that are happening, because I know that, from John Coleman and Jimmy Bell's standpoint, with everything that they've been through the past 20 years and dealing with the budgetary restrictions and things like that, it really has to be a breath of fresh air to be able to know that they can, give players 2-3 year contracts and, have some semblance of the same team going from year to year now.
Well, Jimmy is, as I said, he's one of the people that everybody loves, and he's going to have a lot to say and good stuff too. And he's such a character that I'm looking forward to speaking to Jimmy.
Absolutely. That'll be one to have a whole pot of coffee ready for. All right, guys. Well, I've really enjoyed chatting today. Did you guys have anything else before we wrap up?
I think we've covered quite a lot. Phil, it's excellent. Nice to chat with you guys again.
Yeah, it's been a good chat because we covered a lot, and we've there's so much more to come, and hopefully. When they kick off, on Saturday, we can see some good results coming Stanley's way, and hopefully move up the table a bit.
I definitely have high expectations for the rest of the season. I think that the rough patches are out of the way, and that there's nowhere to go but up to the table from here.
Yeah, and just to remind everybody, you can follow us on Twitter and we're Instagram and Facebook and there's lots of really good episodes that Phil mentioned in our library of players and the veteran series. You can go back and listen to some of those. They're just great. So if you if the evenings are closing in and there's a bit of rain outside and get a coffee or a drink or whatever and pop on an old series, an old episode and help us get those numbers up. So anyway, it's been great chatting with you guys. Always is a pleasure. And I swear next time it's my round.
Well, I'm about finished with my pint, so I think that it's time for, here we go. 1, 2, 3. On Stanley on.
On Stanley on.
Cheers,
guys.